Hi everybody, Paula Smith here. Thank you for clicking on this video. How are you doing today? How's your day? I want to ask you to just take a moment and to put aside your assumptions. Put aside your assumptions about me. Put aside your assumptions about you. Your assumptions about relationships. Your assumptions about your partner. Just put them aside for now so that you can have what we call beginner's mind in Imago. So just take a minute and a couple deep breaths and just let yourself show up here present and curious. What I like to do is just tell you a little story about me, a personal story about my experience of relationships before Imago. And I could pretty much just sum it up in one word: disastrous. I had a string of disastrous relationships. And it was disastrous because I didn't know what to do in them. I mean, I knew how to get in relationships. And I guess my formula, my template for understanding them was that it takes two healthy people. So I just knew I was healthy, right? I assumed I was healthy. And so it was just a matter of finding another healthy person. And so I would, go on my search for another healthy person and fall in love with this healthy person. And then something would happen, right? We'd get into these conflicts. There'd be these disagreements. This person would turn out different than I expected, and I would show up different than they expected. We start to argue. The arguments would escalate. And then we exhaust ourselves arguing over who knows what. And then a relationship would end. And that became what I believed about relationships. I believe you get in them, and if it's the right person, it'll last. And if it's the wrong person, it's going to end. It's going to end. And I believe that. And then I learned about Imago. And truthfully, Imago really shook up my whole entire worldview about relationships. I mean, it was so foreign to me that it was really hard to take. And the first time I did an Imago weekend was in 1999, actually. And that relationship got repaired, but it ended. And we're still friends today. But Imago really just turned on its head everything that I believed about relationships, myself, the world, and the concepts were so foreign to me that it just took a while for me to get it, So one of the things that Imago says, or Imago theory says, is that relationships goes through stages. I didn't know that. I knew you get in them, you fight, you get out. But actually, relationships, there are 5 stages to relationships: romantic, power struggle, the commitment stage, doing the work, awareness and transformation, and real love. And the stages evolve much like the seasons, the seasons changing. Like if you live here in New England, like me, it's winter, and the next stage, the next season is spring, and they just kind of come automatically. Well, relationships goes through stages. Um, so, so I would do very well in the romantic stage, right? I would do very well, and then hit that next stage. Just hit that next stage. Um, and that next stage, which is automatic and normal, is the power struggle stage. So, what would happen to me in the power struggle stage, which I'm sure happens to a lot of couples, is now you're starting to kind of battle for the center. You sort of battle because if your worldview, if the worldview is conflict is is a problem, we typically do one of four things when we hit this power struggle. One is we might fight it out till death do we part. And couples do that. They spend their entire marriage, in conflict. Another thing we do is we could have a very cold marriage, cold relationship where we kind of live parallel lives and we do our own thing separate. I'm going to have to pause and come back. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. I thought the phone was on vibrate. Okay, um, so power struggle. We can fight it out till death do we part. We can have a very cold parallel marriage. Some couples opt to do that, their prerogative. Turning away, maybe focusing on the kids, focusing on hobbies, focusing on work. Couples opt to do that. Um, the third is divorce. Many couples opt to get out because the tension becomes too great. Um, they get exhausted. They can't see a way out. So the solution becomes divorce. And then there's a fourth option, which was quite amazing for me. The fourth option is Imago, is actually doing um, the work of Imago. And the third stage of a relationship is doing the work and making a commitment to do the work, because you need a commitment to move to the next stage. So what was baffling for me too personally was this whole power struggle thing, because so many people get stuck there. And you guys know me with my props. It's almost like when when we're in the power struggle, right? It's like, we got all our differences. We're battling over our differences. We're battling over careers. We're battling over who has power. We're battling over who's healthier, who's not healthy. We're battling over who needs to go do more work. I mean, all of it gets kind of stuck in this knot. We get knotted up, right? So we're here, we're stuck at this impasse. And what was new for me was the way in which Imago theory defines conflict. Now, I don't know about you, but in my family, conflict was dangerous. If there was conflict happening, or in, something looked like it would end up being a conflict, you ran, you got away from there, because it could break out in a fight. Somebody could break out in a fight. Um, you could get hurt. You could get hurt. And so I understand why a lot of people fear conflict. Um, but Imago turns conflict on its head in relationships. And they do it by redefining conflict. So in Imago, conflict is an opportunity for growth and healing. Conflict is an opportunity, is an invitation for growth and healing in Imago. Okay? Now, we know conflict hurts, it's painful, it's exhausting. All that fighting back and forth, it's exhausting. So in Imago, you, we ask couples, and what I was asked in my marriage, like what is trying to grow here? What is trying to grow, right? So think about that. Think about that. I know it's really counterintuitive, meaning we don't naturally think of conflict that way. You know, our definition of conflict is, if you're having it in a relationship, if you're having too much conflict or any conflict, that it's a signal to give up. It's a signal to get out. Now think about Imago. Think about what Imago says about conflict. Imago says, oh no, not a signal to give up. It's not a signal to get out. It's a signal that something is trying to happen here, that something is trying to be born, something is trying to grow between you. Mm, right? That's different. That's different, right? So that was mind blowing, that was mind blowing and kind of like, kind of frightening too. Like something's trying to grow. Like what's trying to grow, you know? Um, but definitely a different way of looking at things. Okay. So yeah, so think about that for a moment. Think about that for a moment. The other thing too is around about conflict is like we know that it's painful, like all the struggling, you know, this this knot, right? It's all this pulling and pushing. There's pain. There's pain in this, right? So what's the pain about? We know that there's pain. What's the pain about? Well, the pain is a signal that we need to pay attention. We need to pay attention here. What is going on that's painful? Okay? So in Imago, what we do to move you and to move me, yeah, I guess this started out as my story, but anyway, how we moved from the second stage to the next stage was the commitment to do the work. So if you don't decide to leave, give up, turn away, get cold, fight it out, um, the next stage will be the commitment to do the work, right? So you need a commitment to do the work, um, because the commitment is going to help you to build safety, and you also need safety in the relationship to do the work. Now, what I used to do is, threaten people into the work. That's not going to happen because you know what happens when you feel threatened. You're not even going to bring your whole self. So we need to remove all the threats out of the relationship. We can't have one foot in, one foot out. If you're going to get out, get out. You're going to stay in and do the work, then we need a commitment to put all of our energy into this. So in Imago, what we do is we call this the survival knot, right? And, I'm a pretty firm believer that couples usually have one or two issues, right? And all of the fights that they have, and I know for us, Yael and I, we have like one or two issues. And all of the fights are usually related to our first cousins or extended family members of those one or two issues. And the bottom line is that it always comes back to those particular issues. Um, oh, let me go back. Let me also say about conflict. When this conflict is happening, what is at the core of it, at the core of this pain that's going on in conflict, is our childhood dramas playing out in our adult relationship. That's why we get stuck. It's almost like we're stuck where we were as kids. And it's an opportunity to explore, you know, where we got stuck as kids and what we needed that we're not getting in our adult relationship. And chances are what we needed as children, we need today. We need in our current relationship. That's the other reason why commitment is so important, because the work that we're going to do is very tender work. And so you don't want it to be on a rocky foundation. So at the core of this knot are our childhood dramas playing out in adult relationship. There's pain, and the pain needs to be explored. In order to explore the pain, we need the commitment and to do the work. Okay, so what does the work look like, right? So in Imago, the work looks like unraveling. We have to unravel, we have to loosen, right? We've got to loosen this knot. We loosen on one side, we loosen on the other side. We keep loosening so that, right, so that some light can get in, right? We can't grow this thing in the dark, right? We can't grow this knot. We need to open it up on both sides, on your side and your partner's side, so that we can understand what is happening, so that you can understand your influence on your partner. That's a different way of looking at it. Now, I never thought that I influenced anybody, because my thinking was, if you need something, then you go get it. Don't come to me with your needs, right? But here is how Imago really twisted my thinking up, or it twisted up first, and now I understand it. But Imago um, says that that's at the core of this is unmet needs, right? And the unmet needs that we have, marriage, our relationship, is an opportunity to get those needs met. Where we weren't able to get them met growing up, for whatever reason, we're not blaming anybody, we didn't get them met. Marriage, committed relationship, is our second chance to do that, right? And so that means that I get to have that in my relationship. I get to get those needs met and heal um, in my relationship. And I need a relationship to do it. Now, I'm someone who did a lot of therapy, probably like you. And um, and it was baffling to me that when I got into a relationship, that I would spin out the way I did. Because see, I thought that I had done my healing. I thought that I had done all this work. Um, that's the first level of healing. You know, that's the first level. The level of healing that I'm talking about is the healing on a relational level, right? That's the second level of healing. And that's the deepest healing according to Imago. And so that's the work that we do, is understanding our impact, understanding what those needs are that weren't met, and we have an opportunity to have them met in our adult relationship, and being able to gain some communication skills some good conversational skills, some good communication skills where we can learn how to communicate clearly and ask for what we want. Um, I didn't know that either. I didn't know about asking for what I want because my assumption is if you know me, you should know what I want, right? And so that was a whole nother way of thinking. You mean I have to like ask you? And it was like a lot of shame, a lot of shame in having to ask because here's another belief system, another faulty thought process. If I have to ask you, then that means I'm weak, or that means I need to be vulnerable. And who wants to be vulnerable in a relationship? Well, the truth is, I learned all of this is vulnerability. There's something about when we're in our conflict, we're vulnerable. We're vulnerable there. And the problem with it is that it's not productive. We don't actually get what we want. Um, because the first two stages in a relationship, the romance and the power struggle, we're actually unconscious. And the biggest shift in Imago work is that shift from unconscious, knee jerk reacting to conscious love and conscious relating. I didn't know that. And so all of the ideas that I am sharing with you today are things that I didn't know and I had to learn too. Um, there's an assumption in our culture that relationships should be easy if you're with the right person, or you shouldn't have to learn how to do this, that it should just come natural. Well, none of this comes natural for any of us. And if we want a relationship, we have to learn how to be in them. We have to learn the skills to be in them. We have to learn how they work and how they function. And that takes time. And so while Imago turned me upside down, inside out, um, it's also been something that's very rewarding because now the difference, the difference is um, it's not the thought that, oh, once we do the work, we're never going to fight. That's not true. That's not realistic because we're always evolving. The difference is when we do come into conflict, we know what to do. We know that there's something happening, that there's pain to pay attention to, that there's growth trying to happen. And that makes all the difference in the world because if nobody leaves, right? If nobody leaves, you get to that next stage, which is the commitment, making the commitment to do the work and to begin your healing journey together. And that's what Imago taught me, that I can heal and grow with another human being. And truthfully, I couldn't fathom that. I had no conception of that. It was not something that I saw in my family. It was not something that I saw um, in relationships around me of people actually growing together and healing together and having fun um, and excited. You know, um, I would hear a lot of people, almost cynical. Oh, you're in a relationship. Oh, you know, um, and even sometimes, when I meet people in airports or if I'm traveling or talking with people and they say, well, what do you do? Oh, yeah, I'm a therapist. I specialize in relationships. Oh, it's like this culture. It's like relationships have this bad rap. And I'm a firm believer it has a bad rap because we don't know what to do. And what I love about Imago gives you a framework for what to do and what to expect. And how great is that? How great is that? To be able to have hope, to be able to have a solution, to not have to live in the shit and the fear and the angst because you don't know what to do in a relationship. How great is that? To be able now to have a framework, to be able to work things out with your partner. It's truly quite amazing. It's quite amazing. Anyway, thank you for listening. I'm Paula Smith, and I hope that this gave you some food for thought. Talk to you soon.